Perfumer Francesca Bianchi was born in Italy. She now lives and works in her laboratory as a perfumer in Amsterdam. She holds herself up inside of her lab. Tirelessly, with vigor and zeal, she works on her compositions using a ton of all-natural ingredients. She came out on the scene in 2016 and continues to make fragrances to this day. She's certainly making waves with her amazing compositions, and I'm going to tell you all about them. So, officially, Francesca Bianchi, welcome to the couch. Hey, what's cracking YouTube? I'm Brandon. Welcome to DaVinci's Alchemyst, your blue-collar guide for drinking well, stinking pretty, and today I'm continuing my house overview series with the official episode 3 of Welcome to the Couch. Today we're going to take a look at Francesca Bianchi Perfumes. Now, I got into Francesca Bianchi fragrances a little while ago, but I had the request from one of my subscribers, Joe, it's cracking Joe, to do a house overview of Francesca Bianchi Perfumes. So I am more than happy to oblige. I am going to break this up into 2 parts, however, because there's a lot of fragrances in her line. Today we'll start with just 4. This week we'll start with 4, and then the following week I'll do the last 5 that I have. I do not have Angel's Dust, unfortunately, so I'm going to leave that one out of this house overview. Real quick backstory. Francesca Bianchi is a self-taught perfumer. She makes all of her compositions in Amsterdam. She then turns that formula over to the artisan makers in Italy, who then basically put everything together and get it ready for shipping. So it certainly kind of is a multicultural process, which is pretty great. So this entire line of fragrances for me does a lot for me. It is super deep, super rich. These compositions access a very raw, primal part of my conscious and subconscious for me, and I really love pretty much every single one of them. So if you were expecting me to talk shit about this fragrance house, this is not going to be the overview for you, because quite honestly, I will likely own every single one of these in my collection at some point. So the 4 that I'm going to be talking about today are going to be Under My Skin, Black Knight, Etruscan Water, and Lost in Heaven. So because I plan on probably doing like full reviews of most of these, if not all of these, at some point in my YouTube career, I will just kind of give a brief overview of each one. So the first one that I'm going to go to is Under My Skin. So the name Under My Skin is pretty apt, honestly. The dry down definitely represents that kind of that human kind of connection. It has a certain amount of subtlety to it, a little bit of saltiness. I get this almost kind of reedy, fibrous texture with it that has a lot of interplay with the spicy, resinous sweetness that happens with this fragrance. This really evokes the image to me of that moment. I'm going to warn you now, a lot of these fragrances that she produces, like I said, they have that kind of primal reaction for me. So it's going to get a little adult themed. This reminds me of that moment right before you're about to kiss someone's skin. Just that little bit of sweetness that you might get from their natural fragrance of their skin, and it's pretty amazing, like how this could represent that so well. I've heard people say that this reminds them of the smell of sex. To me, I don't get that, but I do get that anticipatory reaction of right before you're about to just take a bite out of somebody. That sounded terrible, but little nibble, little kiss, little lick, that sort of a thing. It's a very sensuous fragrance. The opening for me is hugely spicy. I don't get as much of the sensual aspect in the opening. To me, it's very cinnamony in the very beginning. But when it starts to dry down, that's when that sensuality really comes out. When it's on your skin and it heats up, that really makes a huge difference. So moving on from Under My Skin is the next one, which is Black Knight. So Black Knight, I do have a full bottle of this already. This is pretty amazing for me. This is just, oh man. There's an underlining sweetness and kind of creamy texture to it, but it has this very cedary, leathery, almost metallic vibe. And I think that the name for it, Black Knight, was really apt because of the fact that, and this is going to put me into the geek category because you know it will, but I used to hang out with some people that were really into, you know, medieval type of shit. So I had friends that that had armor or crafted armor, and if you don't know much about armor, at those places where it needs to flex, like the joints and whatnot, typically they would connect that with strips of leather to provide, you know, obviously flexibility between those pieces of the steel armor, but also a little bit of protection for if like a blade slipped into that joint. So I fully get 100% absolute that sort of connection between the armor pieces themselves put together, that leathery vibe. I get some animalics in this, but like that balsamic resiny sweetness is there, and I definitely get some cedar in this, and I'm telling you, it's an amazing fragrance, and that is why I bought a bottle of it. That is Black Knight. Next up is Etruscan Water, which I guess you could refer to as, you know, an aquatic, but to me this is a very flowery green sort of fragrance. It's almost got a little bit of a soapy vibe to it. Not a whole lot. I think maybe that soapy vibe I'm getting is from Petitgrain. I know that it also has Immortelle and Basil in it, so that I think lends to a little bit of that greenness. It's definitely light. It has like a watery texture to it, but it doesn't have those traditional elements that you might think of with an aquatic, if that makes any sense. It doesn't put off that aquatic vibe, but it does put off a watery vibe somehow. It does not, which, you know, isn't to say that it's like a weak fragrance, because it's not. All of her fragrances are extrait de parfum from what I gather. And so, I mean, it has legs for sure, but it just has this kind of watery texture to it. I definitely pick up on like the jasmine and the lavender that's in this. I think that's part of where I get the soapy vibe, is from the lavender. But there's, you know, there's a little bit of oak moss. So, I mean, you could technically call this a fougere, I guess. But it is just elevated to the nth degree. It's really nice. Not my favorite of her offerings, but I still like it. So what's that tell you about the brand, right? Or the house, I should say. Anyway, so that's Etruscan Water. Moving on to the final one, and that's Lost in Heaven. Why I haven't bought a bottle of this yet is beyond me, because I'm really enjoying this a lot. I'm pretty much out of my sample sprayer, unfortunately, but I get this kind of honey, creamy, floral vibe put together with this sort of like balsamic sweetness. The best way that I can put this is that to me it's kind of like a hand lightly brushing across your face, or even your neck. It's not that comforting parental sort of touch. It's very much a person that you have a heart for, that you have a feeling for, and they touch you across your face or your neck in a very loving caress sort of a way, and it makes those little hairs in the back of your neck just stand up, and that little shiver you get over your entire body. That's very much the vibe that comes off of this for me. This has got some ylang ylang, some jasmine, some orange flower, I believe mimosa flower, which typically is kind of a little, you know, waxy, which lends a little bit more backbone with the beeswax extrait or beeswax note, I think, that's in this. And like the iris butter and the sandalwood that's in this is, and it all, like I said, it all lends credence to that sort of, that light, soft touch of a texture that it has. So that's Lost in Heaven, and it's really, really great. I love it. That's going to be it for part one of Welcome to the Couch. So technically the next episode will be episode 3B. Hope that works out for everybody. Thanks for sticking around to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. Hopefully I've sparked your interest at least a little bit in Francesca Bianchi Perfumes. Amazing, amazing compositions. If this is your first time to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that thumbs up. Feel free to mash the shit out of that notification bell so you know when I drop future videos. Don't forget to stay tuned and come back next week for the second half of the house overview. Welcome to the couch of Francesca Bianchi Perfumes. Hope that you're all doing well. Please take care of yourselves and each other, no matter where you are, no matter where you're going. Don't forget, keep calm, stink pretty, and I will see you for part 2. Thanks, guys.